Well, you know what they say, the way back home always seems twice as short. And as if to prove the point, this past summer several players who had been playing in the NHL for a long time came back to play in the KHL. One of them is Nik Antropov, who came to Astana, to the banks of Yesil River. It's the very same Nik Antropov who has been and still is considered the brightest star of Kazakhstan hockey of all time. Just about 50 meters separate the river and the arena of Barys here, and beautiful Astana welcomed Antropov with open arms.
Красавица Астана приняла Николая с распростертыми объятиями.
Technically speaking, Antropov didn't come back home. His first team was based not in Astana, but in Ust-Kamenogorsk, Ustinka as it's more commonly referred to, a hockey school that was well known all across the Soviet Union. It's about a 10-hour drive from Astana, and we have to cross the Russian border twice to get there. Nevertheless, Antropov says it feels like home in Astana. Judging by his great performance, he's not lying. Antropov is now 34 years old. His pro career began in Dynamo Moscow. He joined there when he was still really young. Having spent a season in Russian Super League, Antropov went on to play in the NHL and got his first point in his first NHL game. Overall, Antropov played 788 games in the NHL. His ability to rack up numbers in piles and his personality pleased many general managers over the years. Both NHL lockouts that happened in his time, Antropov spent in Russia. This past summer, he decided to come back home for good. I remember my agent invited me for the draft ceremony. I was drafted by the Leafs. I was given an option, either to stay in Canada and play for a major junior team there, or head back and play for Dynamo Moscow. I already spent preseason with Dynamo, and I mean it was a big thing, especially back then. It's Dynamo Moscow. I talked to the Leafs and they said spending a season with Dynamo would be a good thing for me. They loaned me to Dynamo, and that was that. Dynamo's head coach back then was young Zinitula Bileledinov. Nik would never play for a national team Bileledinov has coached, but he still has good memories about him. It was definitely a great experience for me. I remember I was young and inexperienced. That preseason was one of the toughest I had to go through. He was my first coach in Russia. I mean, I left for the NHL after that season, so I didn't have an opportunity to work with other coaches in Russia. And then, when the lockout happened, I signed with Barys, who was coached by Bileledinov, again. And this is Antropov's coach these days, a Finn named Ari-Pekka Selin. He's not a new coach just for Antropov, but he's a new coach for the Continental League as well. They do seem to get along with each other just fine. Nik is a key player for us. The team is built around him. He's very versatile. He's equally good at even strength, power play and penalty killing. He's a true leader. We were lucky to get him this summer. I feel great here. The practices are going really well. They're very intense and short, just the way they need to be. They're not old school. I remember when I had to practice for 90 minutes or 2 hours, of which there were like 30, maybe 40 minutes of actual practice, and then you just stand around there and listen. The coach teaches us modern hockey, and that's a good thing. Same goes for practices. As soon as you're done with one drill, you instantly get ready for another one and go for it. I like it. Antropov already spent a few months last season with Barys during the lockout, so this year he didn't really need much time to adapt to the team. The biggest difference between the NHL and the KHL is the size of the rinks. Obviously, over here you have a little more time to think about your next move. You can take your time even when you have two guys on your back, look around and somebody's bound to be open for a pass. It's not like that in the NHL. Over there you have to know what you're gonna do with the puck before you even get it. If you don't, you're gonna be run over and eaten alive. Don't get me wrong, it's not easier to play here, it's just different. Players who spend a lot of years in North America say it's difficult for them to speak in Russian. For instance, that was the case for Ruslan Fedorenko, although it wasn't a problem for Antropov. I spent 13 years in North America, during which I never went home, except for the lockout. The lockout of 2004 I spent in Russia. My kids speak to each other in English, but me and my wife speak to them in Russian. Fedotenko's different story. His wife is North American, so it's a little tougher for him. My wife is from Ust-Kamenogorsk, my hometown. That's why we talk to our kids in Russian. And then again, I know all the guys on the team. I play with some of them here, and as for the imports, I play with them in North America. It's a good mix for me. I can speak Russian and practice my English at the same time, so I wouldn't forget it. Astana fans were extremely happy to see Antropov joining the team. Wouldn't you be? Who wouldn't like to see this guy on their team? Although it was a difficult decision for Antropov to move back home. I knew what I was getting into. I loved the team, loved the city. My wife and kids visited me here as well last year. My kids obviously can't go to a Russian school, but there's an English school too. That was a big thumbs up for me. Besides, it's a great growing town. The club's infrastructure is getting bigger as well. Everything is top-notch. I talked to my family about the move. I had to, obviously. My kids are all grown up now. They're 13 and 12. Plus, I have another baby now who's just 6 months old. It was a big decision for me. We look at pros and contras, and there you have it. Now I'm here, and I love it. Antropov's kids are doing well as well. One of his sons now plays for Barys 99, and he has a knack for scoring as well. Ironically enough, he scored his first goal on his dad's first team, Torpedo Ust-Kamenogorsk. Unfortunately, I had a game of my own when that happened, so I missed the moment. Well, with genes like these, Antropov Jr. has every chance to become an irreplaceable center like his dad.
Nik
Antropov is a center forward. This position requires a lot of skill. You need to be responsible defensively, and you need to feed your wingers so they score. But most of all, you need to win face-offs. Let's see if I'm as good as Antropov.
Приступаю к обязанностям центрального нападающего. Но в данном случае из меня получился плохой центральный нападающий, который помог нам показать обязанности.
Interestingly enough, Antropov is not a top 6 forward on Barys. Usually he plays on the third line with Tolgadji Laulov and Mikhail Panshin. You might think it's a little weird, but in fact it isn't.
Но ответ на самом деле прост.
When I signed with the team, they were already on top of the league. Everything seems to click for them. So I knew what I was signing up for. I knew that the top line was formed last season, or even the season before that. I knew I was getting on the top line. I knew I had to go out there and prove what I'm worth. I talked to the coach and he asked me, "Do you want to play?" I said I did. I don't have priorities in that regard. I'll play wherever you need me. Barys' top line is all North American. Bachansky, Boyd, Dawes. They get a lot of points. Antropov thinks that just because he had showed up, it's not a reason to break up one of the top lines in the league. It's a very productive line. For the past 3 years or so, they're always among top 10 scorers in the league. They looked good last season in the playoffs as well. I think they're among top 3 lines in the league now. Fans love Antropov regardless. They still pack the rink to see him play. Everywhere you look, you hear them talk about him. He's all over the covers of local magazines and newspapers. Reporters are always looking for a quote from him, and his posters are top sellers. Fans recognize him on the streets as well. Why would I be bothered by them? We play for the fans. Hockey exists for one reason only, to make fans happy. Every now and then fans would walk up to me on the street and say a few words. They congratulate me on a win or cheer me up if we lost. That's the way it should be. You need to have a big frame to play hockey. It's a common knowledge. You can argue with that, but in Antropov's case, there's nothing to argue about. He's got it. Antropov is 6'6", and that's how tall he is without skates. He's 243 pounds, and that doesn't include the weight of his pads. Can you imagine what his opponents feel like when he drives them into the boards? Like over here, for example, in the corner? Can't be much fun. Antropov and Barys turned quite a few heads around in the league this season. They were always considered a tough team to play against, but this year they actually finished second in the East. Why the big change? Antropov won't give us a straight answer. I joined the team 6 games into the season and they were already on top of the league. I knew exactly what I signed up for. The roster is pretty much the same to last season's. We've built a great chemistry, we enjoy playing with each other out there, and that shows in our results. Antropov still lives overseas. He resides in Toronto, the same town he began his NHL career in. Although Antropov says he feels like he came to Astana for a long time. Pretty soon he's gonna play for Team Kazakhstan as well. And beyond that, we shall see. I signed a 2-year deal. Let's see how it goes first. If I'm still healthy after that, why not sign another deal? If not, I'll look for something else to do.